Okay, I'm back on. Having technical difficulties here as usual. Me
Hey
and Google
guys.
don't have a good working relationship.
Apparently not. Apparently not. Well, I'm still here.
Yeah,
I
this is
don't
the
know.
third time that happened to me. I'm talking. One time I was talking up a storm content, and
Uh-huh.
I realized it says broadcast to end, and I didn't end the broadcast. Why are you saying? And I was so upset. But anyway,
Well, that's all
it's
right.
just a cross.
We're not in charge. It happens as it happens. I don't know. I don't remember what I was saying. I know what I was trying to say is I didn't know about the unto that you were telling me, but I was making the point that most people don't know the old philosophers either. In fact, I'm pretty sure academia has intentionally obscured the record of the ancient Greek philosophers because these guys, not all of them, there were atheist Greeks philosophers, of course, like the Stoics and the Epicureans and whatnot, but Plato, Aristotle, Xenophanes, and a few of those others, they all on their own reasoned out that something like God had to exist. That was their word for it, right? Theos. It had to, right? They didn't know what all its
Yeah, the
properties were,
Lagos and all that.
right? And they didn't know what its properties were, but like it probably existed, right? And I'm even saying just it, right? I'm not even sounding Christian. I'm just saying God, it had to exist. They had all figured this out. This is why when you go and you one of the things that I don't think enough people know, and maybe it's even more Catholics should know this, but in the Eastern Church, the original Bible, Old Testament, all the early Christians used was called the Septuagint, which is now
Mm-hmm.
called the Greek Old Testament, but it was the Septuagint, and it was the first, translation for non-Jews basically, and it's what all the gospel writers used, and it was put together about 300 years before Christ, 300 years, and it was just
Yes.
they were fascinated by it because I mean it was started right there in Genesis. They already knew God. They already knew the idea of God. They just would argue about what it was, and then there it was right in the opening pages. And then God said, "Let there be light." It got their attention. It really
Definitely.
did.
Yeah.
And then from everything from there, right? And because basically what they were getting from the Jews is, oh yes, God exists, and by the way, He's talked to us. And so people were interested in that well before Jesus showed up, and not all just Jews either. And that also is one of the great challenges. I mean, it almost sounds like those Bantu people that you were talking about had come to the same conclusions, or similar conclusions anyway, right? I don't know how sophisticated, but it sounds pretty sophisticated from what you described.
Yeah,
I
definitely. And
have this.
I noticed that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed that. Studying different cultures, because one of the arguments that atheists love to use, and is that God is that people created God for whatever reason, for comfort reasons, to be able to prepare for death or whatnot, or like a safety blanket for life on Earth. But what I noticed is that God is pretty much a universal concept all over the world.
It does seem to be. It does seem to be. In fact, I found this one quote from, I think it was Xenophanes. I'll find it specifically if you want. But this guy was 400 years before Christ. He was certainly no Jew. I'm sure he'd never seen any Jewish scriptures and didn't know any Hebrew. And then there was this quote, I just read it, and he was like, yes, men make the gods in their own images. And if there were horse gods, they would make gods that look like and act like horses and think like horses. And the gods that, you know, that men's make all look like this, but the one God is different, and the one God is not concerned with these. I'm not phrasing it very right, but he had clearly like, no, this is different. This is the one that's the ultimately in charge of everything, and it does not act. God does not act like the gods. God does not act like Zeus and Apollo and all that. God would be the one who made all that happen, including those other gods, and they'd already worked all this out. And so, and then I talk to people now and they're like, oh, the big threat is you say your God. Which God? Why is your God different? I'm like, wait a minute. The Greeks had figured this out, and other cultures had figured this out too, that there's the gods. I mean, I'm not saying, but you know what I mean. They'd already worked out this idea of Thor is not the same thing as the idea of God. It's just they're on a
Yeah.
different plane completely. And
I did a podcast on this 2 years ago.
did you?
The 3,000 gods fallacy, I called it, where they say which
Mm-hmm.
god. I argue that is that all these different people had a concept of God. It's just that they understood God based on their limitations, their culture, their understanding.
Yeah.
Hold that against them. But
No.
at least they got the concept right. All powerful, father being, whatever, and whatnot. At least they got those concepts right. And the Catechism talks about this. Yeah, I think paragraph 800 something, 25, 34, something like that. It says that each religion has truth that are preparation for the fullness, the gospel of Christ. This is from the Catechism himself.
Really, I haven't read that, but I'll believe you. I've read similar things. Just like at
I'll see
Vatican.
if I find it right now.
Yeah, I know at Vatican too. They were
One second.
something where they said yes, there's other cultures, other religions do have spiritual gifts, and you don't have to disrespect them.
Yeah, each religion has part of the truth, not all of it.
Right,
And that's the
right.
way I argue whenever the atheists say that, the 3,000 gods, which one is God? They create a whole word salad over nothing.
Oh, they do,
I think I
and
found paragraph 840. As soon as my browser opens it up.
ah,
Yeah,
I'm
it's that
afraid.
certain titles and who is unknown yet near, since he gives life and all things and wants all men to be saved. Thus, the church considers all found in these religions as a preparation for the gospel and given by him who enlightens all men that they may at length have life. So the Catechism says, 843.
Well, there you go. Um, and so there's nothing wrong with that. And this is something that fascinates me because I don't know how much you follow me or look at my own writings, but I've been writing very strongly critical stuff of atheism lately, in a rather provocative way, um, which is mostly to get their attention, right? Plus, one of the things I figured
Mm-hmm.
out is that in current internet culture, basically, you got to poke people and prod them and throw elbows and stuff just to get their attention because everybody's all like, fuck you, Sky Fairy, blah, 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 blah. It's the way people are. So, um, uh, uh, the atheist arguments are so empty and so shallow usually. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some smart ones. Um, and I've known a few atheists and that I love a great deal, and there's almost a shining. They really believe in things in honor and love and things like that. So it's clear the gospel, they say the gospel is written on men's hearts. You can see that in some atheists, right? Just that strong urge to the good that some of them have, but most of them they're just shallow and mean, and it's real noticeable they're just shallow and mean, and probably not very happy people, because a lot of them, not all, again, never all, right? But seem to be trying to get their happiness by proving their intellectual or moral superiority to others, and that's
Yeah,
just
a lot of it might be mental illness as well. You also have to take that into consideration. Some people have something wrong with them.
well,
Um,
and actually this does, and this was a point I was going to make. This is in an article I can send you. I made my own argument for God called the argument from evolutionary psychology, or the proof from evolutionary psychology. Evolutionary psychology is very popular right now, and it's not like it's all lies. In fact, I believe in evolution. It's not a problem for me as a Christian. I don't know why it's a problem for anybody except biblical fundamentalists. But
mhm. The
I
church
link a
actually
number.
endorses.
Huh?
The church actually endorses evolution.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if it exactly endorses it so much as saying, well, it is in no way incompatible and there's no problem there. I mean, I guess theologically, if it turned out that the creation scientist people were right and the Earth's only 6,000 years old or some garbage, well, it wouldn't change much for us theologically, I don't think, but it's very odd, right?
Yeah,
Um,
but
uh,
happened in 6,000 years. As a matter of fact,
no,
I believe.
no, no. No, I'm saying, I mean, actually, it would be theologically irrelevant, is kind of what it would be, right?
I mean,
Um,
I try to listen to these people that claim the Earth was 6,000 years old. I try hard to really objectively. It just doesn't work. Even the way
no.
science is right now, and I have my background is physics and biology, psychology, and philosophy. All these things. Physics point of view, and I think I said this the last broadcast. Even the timeline of 14 billion years is still not enough to allow evolution to it happen. Even 14 billion years is still. And scientists are struggling with that, trying to reconcile. There's one group of scientists believe that the universe is actually much older,
Okay.
14, 15 billion years,
Hmm.
and they fight amongst each other. And then when you put evolution to the whole thing, it just throws a wrench into everything because for life to develop the way it has, complex. I mean, every life. I mean, we human beings, we see ourselves as in the species of this world, but no, you look at even bacteria, how complex it is. Even I wrote some posts about the HIV virus that they are now figuring out a way how to confuse it and get
Hmm.
it to disconnect from the cells so that the antibodies go attack it and kill it.
Hmm.
HIV virus itself, this tiny virus, is so intricate, so well designed, to use for
Right.
lack of a better word. Even
Right.
that organism is so small, is so wonderfully this, even though it's a horrible disease, but it's so wonderfully designed, genetically speaking, and so forth, that 14 billion years to me is not enough. The universe has to be much older.
Well, and from a theological perspective, like I said, I would even still say irrelevant, right? Theologically, it would be irrelevant, I think. I don't know. If you told me the Earth was 6,000 years old and you could prove it to me, it wouldn't change much that I believe. And if you told me it was 50 billion years old, I wouldn't
Yeah, because
change much that I
yeah,
believe. That's
right.
kind of the point I was trying to make.
You're right, because you're right, because our faith is not on how old everything is. That's not what the faith is about. It's about
Right,
going to God.
right. And if you really have if you
The
have a
universe is
mature,
a day old. The
right.
universe is a day old, or it doesn't make it any difference, because what faith is to get to God.
And from my perspective, if you see God as, and this is, I'll say this to people, and they'll act like it's some innovative new argument I've come up with, and like, no, this is an ancient article, ancient argument. God's the thing in charge
Hmm.
of like things like the laws of probability and the laws of physics. So literally, he's in charge of all that. so, um,
Yeah.
literally, it's not that confusing. The laws of probability and the way the universe is developed is going to be exactly the way God wanted. So we don't need like a man with a white beard to literally reach down with his finger and build Adam out of clay, right? And touch
Hmm.
him and make the life appear. Um, and it's uh, that's Saint Augustine, 1600 years ago, said it would be a mistake to try and use the Genesis account literally. He said that 1600 years ago. He said that would be foolish.
It would.
And find me somebody. I'll find you the exact quote if you need me to. But I mean, he did, and he had his own analyses, and it's very spiritual, and it's very meaningful, and it's very deep. And he just throws out the whole idea that, oh yeah, you're going to sit down and work out timelines and figure out maps. Come on, give me a break. That's not how it works. Most Christians have never thought
No.
that. And most Jews never thought that. Although I'm sure if you look around, there's probably some Jew who thinks the world is 6,000 years old or whatever. But no, intelligent people who know what God is know that God is the thing that makes reality go. So
Hmm.
he's not like a bigger version of Thor. and
Yeah.
and people today can't hear that for some reason. Oh, but I was trying to make the
Yeah.
point.
And speaking about Thor, I want to point out something that, like I was telling you before, that I started to notice that each culture has this idea of God, and they pretty much pinned it down. And more weird, Daniel's prophesied Christ
Oh yeah.
in his book number 2361E and 362A. Will have to endure the lash, the rack, chains, the branding iron in his eyes, and finally, after every extremity of suffering, he will be crucified.
Really
Yeah, this is what Plato wrote
interesting.
in book The Republic, book 2, 361E and A.
Well, and this gets to my. I was talking about. I wrote the article. I'll send it to you. It's called "The Argument from Evolutionary Psychology." I note there at least a couple of things. One, what you just said. Most people appear to have some idea of God. They do. It appears to be instinctive in most people at some level. And there's also a couple of studies that suggest that at least in some people, atheism may actually be a form of brain damage. Like they literally
Yeah,
can't conceive of this, which raises interesting questions of its own, right? Like if they've been damaged some way that they literally can't understand this idea, I don't know how much at fault they are, but although you'd think they could at least try, right? But if every culture's got this idea, and it looks like they do, right, or at least some kind of idea of greater spiritual forces, right? The universe came from somewhere. Atheists, at least the serious atheists, are very much a minority. So if we're going to be scientific about it, and people like Daniel Dennett and all those guys have spent a lot of time analyzing religion from the perspective of what's wrong with religious people, right? And they come up with these cockamamie things like mimetic virus and all that stuff, right? And we'll just
hmm
all break
yeah,
this. Daniel Dennett calls it breaking the spell. We'll just break the spell. They're coming around to start realizing, no, it doesn't work. Atheism isn't growing. It's not even growing here. And so the question, because let's just put it from a pure evolutionary biology standpoint, what makes more sense? We accidentally developed a strange mutation that makes both our conscious and our unconscious minds completely break with reality and become delusional and possibly violent and oppressive. And this strange mutation that breaks all of our rational faculties also is somehow a pro-group survival mutation. Somehow. Uh, does that make the most sense? Or did we evolve a need for God because God wanted us to have it and God's real? And, you know, an understanding of forces beyond time and space would be a pro-survival trait to have some kind of spiritual awareness. What
yeah.
makes more sense? I'm not saying it very well, but I'll send you the article because I got a lot of links on it. And it's like, if you're
Okay.
going to use Occam's
Well,
razor,
I wanna comment a few things that you said there. First, the atheism as a mental illness. Actually, there was a
mm,
study by Dr. Andrew Newberg, Brian Center,
okay,
and what he did was he took atheists, he took monks from Buddhist monks, and he took religious sisters, Catholic nuns. He tested them. He put them in the what do you call it, the CAT
yeah,
scan machine,
okay, CAT scans, yeah.
and he told them to pray, to think about God. You know, that was pretty much the experiment: to think about God, to pray to God, and whatnot. And he had these three different groups subjects do this, and he noticed that the nuns brain that was most active was the frontal lobe, which is like the higher level of the human, the what makes us human, the frontal lobe.
Oh, really? Okay.
Self-awareness, intelligence, to think beyond thinking, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Activated. It was going crazy, haywire. It was lighting up all over the place. With the monks,
Really?
some of it highlighted. Buddhist monks, so they just think of meditation. They're not really praying.
They're kind of emptying their
S-
minds almost. Yeah.
The part of the brain that was connecting was the hippocampus region, which deals with emotions and memory.
Interesting.
And memory,
Okay.
they're thinking about something. So obviously, that area of memory will be active. So the atheist, he discovered something interesting. He discovered that the atheist was actually blocking, working from thinking about God, from contemplating God, from praying to God. They were tested, were actually putting like a mental block. They were preventing themselves from contemplating God, whether that's a person or a concept. It's
Well,
intentional or there's something wrong there, we really don't know. But I just wanted to throw that out there.
that's interesting, and I'm going to
And
ask you to, when you get a chance, send me that, because I'm compiling links like this, not to necessarily shame atheists, although I have been giving them a hard time lately. But to, like, really, if we're going to be scientific about this, let's be really scientific. Is something wrong with atheists? It's a fair question. They certainly spend enough time asking if something's wrong with us, and I don't want it to be an us and them, but it's like, shouldn't they even think about it? If you're a self-aware, scientifically minded person, you know your own viewpoint has a subjectivity issue, and you can be wrong and you can fool yourself. That's why you've got to be open to every question. And so the real question, I really think, whether you're scientific minded or otherwise, as an atheist, is your position actually, is there anything scientific about your position? And have you considered the possibility that you are the one who has something wrong with you in your thinking? And it doesn't necessarily have to be brain damage, although it's interesting. People who are autistic and have Asperger's have a higher degree of atheism than almost any other group. And I'm not saying
yes,
that out of hate. I have an autistic son. I love him very much. Um, I've got my own issues. And so, but this should be fair. I mean, and it might even be a way of waking some people up. It's like, wait a minute. Yes, there's the laws of time and space. We get it. Is there anything outside that? And is there anything responsible for making it happen? These aren't hard questions. And when it is true. What you just said kind of rings true to me about that study, because when I have the conversation with atheists and I go into these areas, they really want to change the subject. It seems like they don't like
you
this.
get uncomfortable.
They do. They get real uncomfortable, and and so they start assuming their conclusion again. Well, obviously that's all in your head. That's the other one I mention to them all the time. I'm like, okay, so you insist all experiences are chemical phenomena inside your skull. Have you ever proved that? And of course, the answer is no, because it hasn't been, and it's not going to be. We have no idea how consciousness works. I mean, no, I'm sorry, we have dim ideas of how it works. You can't actually trace how a thought runs through your head. You can't. We know there's correlations with certain types of thought in certain areas of the brain, but you can never point and just say that memory is there and that thought is there. No, we're not anywhere near that advanced.
Yeah, it's not like a DVD or something that you could just skip to the next track or something. That's
Yeah,
not how the brain works.
no,
Or the
no.
old-fashioned the record players from back in the days that you just pick up the needle and put it wherever you wanted the song to start. That's not how
And
memory works.
I've actually done a bit of a 180. I used to be pretty sure that we were going to be able to simulate human consciousness with, you know, information technology. The more I look at it, the more I'm convinced, no, that won't happen.
No, it's not going to
Um,
happen because the human being memory comprises us. Emotions is biochemical. So I mean, unless
well,
you have a
that's
robot that
I'm going to challenge you on that. I'm not sure you're right. I think part of our awareness extends completely outside of time and space and isn't confined to our skulls and our biochemistry. I think our skulls and our
yeah, but
biochemistry
I mean
are
physically
influencers.
speaking,
Hmm. Sorry.
speaking, I was referring to the body itself, how it works, the brain is
Sure.
biochemical. That's what I
Right.
mean by that. Yeah,
Yeah, that's an
it's
old argument, but
biochemicals.
yeah, it's an old argument. But is the brain the mind? and I'm actually
Yeah.
sort of increasingly feature. I'm increasing of the idea that no, the brain is an organ the mind uses. The mind isn't the brain. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
There's a big debate in philosophy. Daniel Dennett, the atheist philosopher, loves
Yes.
to argue about that.
And whenever I read his stuff, I'm reading a man telling me that he doesn't think. It's
Mhm.
ludicrous. I don't think, and I'm not conscious. I'm just a machine. That seems to be what his argument boils down to. And I actually used to think that myself, but at some level, I was like, wait a minute, no, wait a minute. I am aware. I'm not fooling myself into thinking I'm aware. I believe I really am aware.
There's
You know
something
what I mean?
much more. Yeah. There's something much more with the human being and autism. I want to share a story about Teresa that
Okay.
one day, and he was teaching a Holy Communion class, First Communion, a student, a child that had autism, and um, one of those autistic kids that have problems speaking.
Hmm.
So this priest didn't know if the kid was learning or not, if the kid was learning the catechism, the basics, or what. He had no idea. So went and she grabbed a crucifix and she put it on the table, and she grabbed a loaf of bread and she put it on the table, and then she took one of the unconsecrated that we use for communion and put it next to the loaf of bread. And then she asked the child, "It's Jesus." And the little kid pointed at the loaf of bread, mouth, and his stomach.
Really?
Pointed to the wafer, and then pointed to the cross. Teresa told the priest, "Yeah, he's ready for communion."
Wow, that's a neat story.
Yeah.
That's a really neat story, and I'll believe it. I'll believe it. Um, I it's getting late, so I'm tired. I'll probably go soon, but and I hope we could do this again. But I
Well,
really think
tomorrow's
that.
gonna have the
Oh,
well,
really?
today,
Okay,
actually,
I'll be
yeah,
happy.
tonight. Yeah.
Oh well, maybe I'll come by depending on what time.
I
Um,
was hoping atheists would show up today, but they seem to be afraid of me or whatever.
you ever get any? Because I usually find 90% of atheists 99% do not want to have the conversation. They just don't want to have it.
No, only one
Um,
guy, Seth. He joined me back in August last year. He joined me, and friends, but all the other ones from Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus,
they don't
they
come.
especially in Google Plus. Yeah, in Google Plus, they get upset at me because I disable comments, and the reason why I do that is because all I get are insults. I mean, I don't have insults, so I
Yeah.
just disable it. I just disable the comments because it doesn't make sense for me to be sitting wasting my time. I have other things to do, and just reading insults. Oh, you're an idiot. You're a moron. You're this. You're that.
Well,
And so I said, well, just join me here and talk to me live. What's the big deal? We don't have to type. I don't have to be getting arthritis typing back and forth. It's no big deal,
I
and they don't want to come.
and I think there's something going on there because I'm not the. I've noticed very similar. Um, I I will get to go. They will be really insulting and nasty, and the main way is not with just their nonsense about sky fairies and all that, but like they'll like intentionally. It feels like they're intentionally twisting your arguments, or and they're just being nasty, almost like they're trying to get you to block them, so that they can then or turn off comments or whatever, because then they will run around and tell everybody else you're
They
closed-minded,
actually
huh?
thrive on that. They actually they see that as a trophy online. They see it when Pope Benedict came on Twitter, all of them stormed the account, pontifex, insulting him, saying all kinds of vulgar things. And the same thing when Francis took it over. Comments. Oh, I hope he blocks me. Oh, who will be the first to get blocked by pontifex? And I'm thinking these people are crazy.
I, you're
How can they
right,
go
and
into the streets and like going to the street and saying, "Arrest it"? I mean, who's the first to break the law? I mean, come on. There's something psychopathic about that.
Well, all right, we'll use the word psychopathic for now. Maybe there's spiritual terminology for it because you see this in other writings, right? It's been hitting me lately that just the descriptions of people's behavior described in the Bible are still completely active.
Yeah.
And that whole
Oh,
mudslinging, hating on somebody who's good. Yeah, it astounds me because I am willing to have the conversation with the atheist, and I am willing to be nice. I have, in the last year or so, I've become a lot more brusque, right? A lot more rude, sometimes even insulting. Oh, I refer to it as being salty, right? Throw some salt at them.
yeah.
Um,
I just joke with them.
but I think they're like, what is it I'm trying to say? Um, they're afraid of something or something, right? Because you could totally, I mean, I could right now have an easy conversation with like a pagan who doesn't believe Jesus is real. Hell, I've had some awesome, and I mean really awesome and deep and interesting conversations with Orthodox Jews. Now, obviously, we have strong disagreements on certain things, but we're civilized people and we don't even tap dance around them. We just know the areas you don't want to bother arguing with, right? So I know what
Hmm.
the Jewish position is on Jesus, and what am I going to do? Beat him up? No, he has his position. Um, but atheists can't apparently do that. I don't know what that is, right? Or if I've seen it with some pagans. There's something called neo-paganism. And like I would totally talk to one of those guys, and I wouldn't be there trying to tell him why he's wrong about everything. I'd just like to ask questions. And it's like even they don't want to have the conversation. I think there's something very powerful about the gospel that does frighten them somehow, at some level, at some visceral level, I mean,
Yeah.
at some deep inner level,
Yeah.
because they won't even be corrected when you say, no, this isn't what we think, this isn't what we believe, this isn't what you know what I mean?
Yeah. They seem to think like they know more about your religion than you do, which
Oh,
is
yeah,
just crazy.
it
The reason
is.
why the reason why I use the word psychopathic is because in psychology, one of the signs or symptoms that there's something wrong with them in the head, antisocial behavior or violation of social norms. When somebody's going out there violating what society has decided will be the norms, then there's obviously something. There could be an indication that something that's wrong with that person's mind. So when I see these people looking to get blocked and like putting the other day, somebody tweeted to you or to me the picture of Jesus with oral sex or something.
Uh-huh.
I'm just thinking there's something wrong with these people. There's
Yeah, I
seriously
remember. uh,
wrong with these
And I
people.
didn't get angry. I mean, because at this point, I don't see any point in getting angry. Um,
I don't get angry either. I get concerned because I figure, do these people have children? Do these people have a family? I mean, these are their brains. I mean, there's something wrong there.
maybe it's I don't know because I'm happy. I guess all we could do is I don't want to sit there and down talk them because God still loves them. But yeah, I'm amazed more of them don't because. But I will say this in their at least in many of their behalves, some of them were religiously abused as children or even as adults, right? And it
Hmm.
might have been they were badly treated by Catholic parents or some priest somewhere, but it could have been they were badly treated by a fundamentalist cult of some sort. A lot of atheists seem to have grown up in fundamentalism, which is, and you can almost spot the atheists who grew up in some kind of religious fundamentalism. They're different, um, and they're more attracted to certain types of arguments and behavior where so I mean all of that has happened, and certainly televangelists and people who run around pressing, have you accepted Jesus as your personal savior or you're going to hell, those people used to be common anyway, and they are very off-putting, which is probably why Pope Francis and others have said don't proselytize. But Catholics have never been proselytizers, is the funny thing. not in my memory. So I mean, I'm giving them that, right? There are some really obnoxious people pushing Jesus in your face and shoving Jesus in your face everywhere you go, and I can see why that annoys
Hmm.
people. But there's still a certain open-mindedness, even making allowance for that. There's a certain open-mindedness they will not display. It's like, okay, here's the Christians who don't act like any of those things. Are you going to talk to them? Apparently not. Apparently not. I don't know. I guess I'm rambling now. It's getting late. But hmm. Well, actually, I should probably get to bed. But it was a real pleasure meeting you, and I'm
It's
enjoying your
very
book. Hmm?
okay. Likewise, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm enjoying your book. I
I'm
hope
glad you
people.
didn't pay attention to the reviews because I'm trying to get Amazon to take them down.
There's a whole group. There's a whole group. Have you heard of something called the Goodreads Bullies? Okay. Hello? Did I lose you? Ah, shit. Hello?
I don't know. It's like I'm hearing you like an echo.
I'm not sure what that was. Google. Yeah, I was going to say there are groups, and it's not just atheists who do this, although there's some overlap, but that just run around on sites like Amazon and Goodreads and find books to brigade down vote and brigade down up, and put in horrible reviews. They haven't
Oh
bought
yeah,
it. They haven't. And there's whole groups of them. They're like running packs or something, and it's pretty clear they're coordinating
yeah. They're
and
very coordinated.
huh?
They're very coordinated. I showed you the tweet with the photos, the two of them.
No, I didn't see that one. Send it.
Yeah. Like I told you, most of them are from the Google Hangouts. I mean, not Google Hangouts. Google Community DS versus.
Oh yeah.
And the moment I announced that I was writing a book, they were already contemplating to go and post rap. Yeah, they were already planning it. So I already knew it was going to happen. What bothers me is that Amazon won't do anything about it.
I and it's absurd. It's absurd. You would think that it hurts sales and more than that. And I haven't just
Exactly.
seen I will say that atheists aren't the only ones who do it. I've seen other people victimized by that is not religious. Like a friend of mine who writes science fiction, and he upset some feminists, and boom, they just went after all of his books
Yeah.
in
Yeah, of course.
retaliation. And he writes like science fiction. He's not even religious, right? Although he's become religious. It's funny. He's a friend of mine, Kevin. I don't know if he'll be listening. I won't say his last name, but he's really thinking about becoming Catholic, actually. Um, After he used to be an atheist, and then he started having run-ins with feminists. He used to be a super liberal atheist, super left-wing liberal atheist, and feminists just drove him out of the whole left-wing politics thing. Then he got into right-wing politics and nationalism and all that, and he started to get very repelled by that too. And now he's looking at Jesus, and he's getting pretty serious about it. Because I think when you look at this world, we can talk about communism and it's evil, and boy, is communism evil.
Yes.
Um, the excesses of capitalism and the excesses of excess capitalism and excessive nationalism are really just as awful, in my view. And I think this is
Oh, they
something,
are.
and I think this is something that happens to a lot of atheists. There's like you've knocked out atheism. To me, is mind closing in most cases. I mean, there's always exceptions, right? But it closes your mind. It closes your mind to endless possibilities, and not just to the possibility of God. Pretty soon you get to, well, if you can't scientifically prove that, then I won't believe it.
Yeah, that's
And
called
and, and
scientism. I
yeah,
speak about
and
that in
the
the book.
yeah, I know, and I've been writing about it myself because I see it so clearly. I used to kind of be that way, right? I remember when
Yeah.
I used to kind of be a scientismist. I mean, because I would just like, okay, if I don't have scientific evidence, I'm going to reject that. Until I read enough and learned enough about science, it's like, that ain't going to work. That's not going to
Yeah.
work at all. And what you actually wind up is just auto disbelieving everything until you've got like a measurement. And that you can't go through life that way. You can't. Um,
Yeah, and then whenever I get into people that subscribe to scientism and they tell me all these things that you need to empirical evidence, blah blah blah. I asked them, well,
science is the way you know the truth. I love how they say that.
yeah,
But anyway,
I asked them, well, can you show me scientific evidence of your introspection? I mean, first of all, they don't know what introspection is. They're like, what the hell? That's how you perceive yourself and everything. So I said, well, show me scientific evidence of that, of how you're right now in your body seeing the world yourself. Show me evidence of that. Nobody can. Not psychology cannot do it. You cannot take, like you were saying, the mind and the brain. It's not really the same thing. You
hmm
cannot put your introspection on a petri dish. You can't do that.
no,
So what's the conclusion? We don't exist. Come on. You see the flaws in how these atheists
it it's a
portray the
reductionist
role of
worldview,
science.
and it's a very reductionist worldview, and I think it's actually it causes more. Basically, atheism starts with reductionism, and then you either get into something like scientism, or you get into something like feminism, or Marxism, or Ayn Rand's objectivism, or environmentalism. And it's like, it's not like any of these things I listed have no truth at all, but the common thing is they're reducing everything to this ideological view, whatever it is, right? Like, uh, feminists are like this. The two worst offenders, the three worst offenders in my view are objectivists, Marxists, and feminists. Um, and yeah, the feminists are like the Marxists, but the objectivists are like the opposite, like the mirror image opposite, and they're just as reductionist because they think everything goes down to economics.
Mm-hmm.
So the atheist, if the atheist doesn't get into scientism, he'll get into something like economics, which is barely a science, although there's science in it. Um, or, and this is the other dirty secret, you find out a lot of them will deny it, but you just get them in a private conversation and they'll be into astrology or palmistry or some other stuff where they're claiming, well, I don't really believe it, but they're playing with it all the time. And it just says something to me that they're not. To me it's a mind closing effect that they've actually that is attributable to atheism. If I had the psychological study grants, I will bet you we could find that most atheists are very narrow minded people. And I don't think it's because they're narrow minded by nature. I think the atheism made them narrow minded. I know that when I surrendered my atheism and said, this just fucking doesn't make sense, excuse me for swearing, I swear, but it didn't, I couldn't sustain it anymore. Atheism didn't make sense anymore. It was like my mind just opened and I was open to so many new possibilities. I might have maybe gone another way and not become a Christian, but the point is that just saying, wait a minute, my mind's been too closed by all this. New vistas opened up for me. You know what I mean? Looks like we lost you again. Well, listen, Sacerdotes, it's a pleasure. Maybe I'll come looking for you tomorrow. I'm tired, so I'm
You
gonna.
still there?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am.
Okay, yeah, because I'm getting hate messages from Google.
Are you really? Are they mad at
um,
us, or is this something else?
I don't know. I just
Oh,
keep
oh, you
saying
mean you're
you're
just getting
disconnected.
errors?
Yeah, I'm like, what? So, I'm
You
looking
know
at
what?
my
You know what it
I'm
might
looking
be.
at the
You're looking at what?
what do you call it? The bars from the connection, Wi-Fi, and all that, and it's like all 5 bars are lit up, and it's telling me this disconnected. I'm like, how am I being disconnected if I'm like 100% connected?
You've probably got
It's
some
getting
dodgy connection issues. I'm actually a real technical guy, so I'll write you a note. I may have suggestions for how to improve your Hangout technology. I'm getting tired now, so I'm going to go to bed. And I know if I don't just stop somewhere,
okay.
I'll just keep talking because I'm enjoying this. But I really am tired, so I'm going to go to bed. But God bless you, man, and I hope we
Some
talk again
rest.
soon.
We'll have to
Okay.
get some rest.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
Oh,
Bye.
definitely, definitely.
Bye. Bye.
Likewise, God bless and Mary keep. We had a wonderful discussion with Dean, who's a former atheist and now he's Catholic, so on and so forth. So right out there could actually get a real review, like ones that these trolls who were targeting me, which I was discussing with him, posted on Amazon and whatnot, trying to whatnot. And so I'm looking forward to that. Um, in the meantime, I think I'm gonna address some more things here. Is the theist versus atheism group, and I see that and Angela Martin is still posting. I think she's trying to bait me into an argument. She's been posting things about the Catholic Church, pedophilia, and so forth. Try to link the the screen thing here so that everybody can see what I'm looking at. So as I find it here, everyone, okay. Hopefully you're seeing what I'm saying here. Angela Martin, she said the Catholic Church produces pedophiles, the worst pedophiles. Again, that's nonsense. If Angela bothered to read statistics from the FBI, from other organizations and other nations that deal with these things, from psychologists, APA, and other organizations, and each country has their own version of the APA, the American Psychological Association. But she bothered to really like look at these things, these studies, these statistics. She would learn that the pedophiles, they mostly come from married men, Caucasian married men. This is where the majority of pedophiles is found in this group of people. Not in clergy. As a matter of fact, the clergy is less than 2% from the last statistics that I saw. Less than 2% of pedophiles are clergy. Now, this is something tricky because people say they think, it's a child molester or whatnot. Pedophilia actually deals with kids who are prepubescent. If a man or woman sexually abuses a 13-year-old, 15-year-old, or 17-year-old, 16-year-old, whatnot, that's not pedophilia. That's what's called euphoebophilia, which deals with pubescent children, kids that are going through hormonal changes and so forth. The boys, they hit puberty, their voice deepens, they get facial hair, body hair, they look more manly. And the girls, of course, their breasts grow, they get the menstrual cycle, and they start looking more like an adult female. Um, and of course, are able to get pregnant. So at this age, if one of these innocent kids gets targeted, it's by an ephebophile, not a pedophile. A pedophile is somebody that goes after kids who are before prepubescent, before puberty. So they will be from newborn up to 11 or 12, because again, puberty starts uh, differently in in different children. Not everybody gets puberty at the same time. So I'm just guessing from 10, 11, 12, around there. Usually about 12, 13 kids hit puberty, but not all of them. But any kid younger than that, the person that targets them will be considered a pedophile. So again, if Angela bothered to do research or whatnot, she will learn these things. But like I was discussing with Dean, a lot of these atheists, they seem to thrive on living in ignorance. They don't bother to research things. I mean, you save us a lot of trouble, and I say us, apologists and people that try to explain the faith. You will save us a lot of trouble if you just go and study and research it, because you will see that come out with are erroneous and just based on ignorance, pretty much. So here she posted another one about the clerical abuse cost American dioceses and religious orders $141 million and so forth, May 2004, 2015. Again, the this number 141 million, 3 billion. I'm not sure the number. I know it's a lot of money. It deals with cases from a long time ago, from the 1940s up to like the 70s and 80s, which was when this problem was really going on. So all these numbers that she's mentioning, they were paid off by dioceses and religious orders, had to do with those cases years ago. These are not cases that are going on now. They happened years ago. A lot of these priests who abuse these kids are dead, and the kids themselves are already up there in age, 50, 60 years old, 70 years old. So obviously the church gave them money via the lawsuits to pay for their psychological counseling and their own legal bills and whatnot. So it's not like these victims are getting money and then they're going buying mansions with it or not. The money is actually going to help them, their psychological help, their legal costs and whatnot. So you could see that the church is actually caring for them, helping them in that manner. Because obviously, real justice, unfortunately, can't really be done because in a lot of these cases, the statute of limitations expired. So even if the perpetrator priest is still there, obviously kicked out of the priesthood, or the priest is still alive somewhere, or none, or whatever, and if the statute of limitations expired, they can't really arrest the person. Look at the situation with Bill Cosby. Uh, the case now is not really going to really do anything for him against him because the statute of limitations passed and so forth. So, and this money, it comes from insurance companies. So it's not really the diocese that are paying it for it. It's just the insurance. The diocese, they have to operate as a business under the law. I mean, we don't really want to be looked upon as a business, but in each country that we live in, we have to follow the rules and laws that exist in them. Like, for example, with my work, sacerdotes.com, the sacerdotes ministry, and so forth. Um, a lot of people ask me why I don't go and get nonprofit status. You know, a lot of these Catholic and different religious things, even atheist groups, they apply for nonprofit status. And I tell them, those should, I tried. I mean, pretty much, I tried to apply for that, and I was told by the IRS that I needed like a group of people to work with me. So in other words, I had to have like a type setup. I had to have more than like 5, 10 people under me and me as the executive in order for me to really apply for non-profit status. Since it's just me alone doing this, then I can't apply for non-profit status, unfortunately, which it sucks pretty much because I can't really give people a number and say, okay, put this in your tax returns and you could get a refund for whatever donation you gave to me, even though you still could get it if you just write it down as a gift. But to make it look more professional, it would be nice to have sacerdotes and then like nonprofit organization, whatever. But unfortunately, I cannot do that based on the law the way it is now. I will need to have like more people working under me, like a little corporation, business, something like that. So, just to not to get sidetracked, but just to explain why that. Now here, puts a thing about Latin American scandals. Again, if you look at statistics, Angela, you notice that it's happening in families. A family member molests a child or whatnot in the family. So it's not like all priests, ministers, rabbis out there, imams are predators and whatnot. Some of them, unfortunately, are. They have something wrong with them. And unfortunately, the way psychology tests are set up now, it's not really that we can't really spot things right away. So, you should really you should really you do research, before you go post these things and whatnot. So I think that's enough for now. I don't want to extend it too long. I apologize for the interruption, and I think the audio was messing up. I don't know, in my earpiece, I was listening to Dean, and it sounded like he was breaking up. I'm not sure if that's being recorded, or that's what you guys are listening to right now, but I apologize. That's not our fault. That has to do with Google. They disconnected the first time. And, I'm probably gonna have to contact Google about that. Why I'm having technical difficulty with this. It should run smoothly. There shouldn't be any problem. So anyhow, thank you for listening. God bless, Mary keep. To today, actually, because it's already Saturday. My clock here says 1:50 a.m. Today or tonight at 11:35 p.m. I'm gonna have the Catholic version of this Catholic Open Mic, which I invite Catholics or just anybody you just want to come. It's not I'm not a segregationist, but just for the sake of title, giving the title, I put Catholic Open Mic on. But Catholics come on and voice their opinions, discuss anything about the Pope, the Catholic faith, or whatnot, ask questions about the Catholic faith, and we just have a discussion just like I just had with Dean, and but more focus on Catholicism as opposed to this broadcast, which is more focused on atheism. So hopefully you will join me for that. Thank you for listening. God bless and Mary keep, and have a happy and safe Memorial Day. And let's pray for all the servicemen and women around the world. Show our love for them, our appreciation. If you see a soldier, Marine, Air Force, man, woman, SEAL, what are the branches out there? Marines. Well, anyway, the military, any military person out there, you see them in uniform, whatnot. Just say thank you to them. Say you appreciate their service. This doesn't mean that you're endorsing war by celebrating the lives of our military and our veterans and those who died in service. Doesn't mean that we're evil people celebrating war. No, we're celebrating these people, these brave men and women who risked their lives to keep our nation safe, and not just America, but your own nation out there, wherever you're residing and wherever you have your nationality. And just say a big thank you to the servicemen and women. I mean, they don't have to do that. I mean, I sure would not do that, to tell you the truth. If America was being invaded and they told me here, take a gun and fight, most likely I'll say no. I'll probably head to Canada or something. But well, I'm probably just exaggerating. But for the most part, I don't like violence and all that. So there's better ways to resolve issues. But we have the military. We have to thank these brave young men and women and old men and women who are obviously out of the force, and remember those who have passed on and are no longer with us. So thank you for listening again. God bless. Mary keep.